Regan Slaymaker for Solar&StorageXtra, and I have the pleasure to be joined by Ross Grier, the Chief Operating Officer for NextEnergy Capital. Ross, how are you today?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me for a chat.
No problem at all. All the better for talking to you as well. Great to have you on the channel as well. My first question, Ross, thought we'd jump straight into it. So I want to start with for those that don't know, what the NextEnergy Capital do and what do you do and what do you do in relating to contributing to decarbonising the energy space?
So I am Chief Operating Officer and Head of UK Investments for NextEnergy Capital. So I look after our UK business and also our operations across the globe. NextEnergy is a mission-focused investment manager that's trying to help transition to a more sustainable future through driving investment into renewables. Our core focus is solar PV plus ancillary technologies like batteries. So Solar and Storage Live is a great kind of platform for us to be part of. We currently own and operate around 14% of the UK's utility scale solar, and we operate across most OECD markets now with around $4 billion of assets under management, predominantly solar, as I say. So we really do see ourselves as an expert in solar and how to extract value for our investor base over our investment period. There's 300 people in our group now, so 300 professionals focused on every aspect of a solar asset, from its conception right the way through to its decommissioning and everything in between to extract maximum operational value from each of those assets.
Perfect. What would you say the challenges are from that period, from conception to decommissioning, and then getting the most out? What are the main challenges that face a solar project in that cycle?
So solar over the past decade has gone on a really interesting journey. I say the same thing quite a lot. So when I started in about a decade ago for Next, actually, we were very much accused of the fact that it was a tree-hugging decision to do solar, and that there's not enough sun in the UK to generate a reasonable business case, and you should do it in more sunny climates. And actually, what we've done over that decade is really mature solar as part of the UK energy mix. So that's been a really lovely transition to watch, and is a really good springboard for the future evolution of the UK solar industry. Going back to your question, though. I think one of the things people have often struggled with is the intention or the thought process that solar is kind of fire and forget, right? So it's pretty simple, steady state technology. You put it in the ground and you just leave it alone and generate revenue over its life. They really aren't, right? So full of little computers, full of panels and wires and stuff that goes wrong over time. So you really need to monitor, look after those assets, and really ensure you are investing in the right way to make sure you maintain maximum availability, maximum uptime of your asset, so you're generating as much power as you possibly can, and that you're looking after the asset's health over the long term as well. So we've got, as I say, a whole bunch of professionals in our asset management team who day in, day out are looking at each one of our assets to ensure that they are achieving our expectations in terms of general yield, general power output, and asset health. And then we strategically invest over time to really power them, to ensure that we're making the very best use of the parcels of land that we occupy, and generating the most power that we can from each generating station.
Perfect. And that leads well into your speaking position, or your keynote speaking position at Solar and Storage Live London. Obviously, you sit on the Solar Taskforce, and the panel title is the Solar Taskforce Recommendations 2024. Obviously, I don't want to basically have this panel before the event itself, but I know that, so for those that don't know, the UK Solar Taskforce is a genuinely joint government and industry initiative to help set the scene for what the government and future governments will do to deliver solar. Thank you for Chris Hewitt for that quote, by the way, in our interview that we done at Birmingham last year. But yeah. So as I said, I don't want to go into the panel too much, but what, in your opinion, needs to be done for a successful solar revolution in the UK?
So the task force is writing a roadmap at the moment, which will be published in due course, and that's really about the next wave of solar growth. So we've delivered approximately 16 gigawatts of solar in the UK to date. We're targeting 70 gigawatts by 2035. So that's a massive increase in solar capacity. And clearly there are challenges in that journey, and most of those are relatively well publicized, and we can chat about those in more detail. But the task force is work has been to identify what those challenges are, understand the opportunities that are ahead of us as an industry, so job creation, skills creation, and engagement with communities and engagement with key stakeholders, and ensuring that we are continuing to professionalize the industry and attack any roadblocks, any speed bumps that are in the way to unlock that capacity that we all know is viable and that we believe is a really important target for the industry, that government also has agreed with, to achieve that incremental decarbonisation of the grid that's really important in our net zero journey as a country. So key focuses, or key themes that we look at as part of that task force is things like grid capacity and how grid connections are going to be realised in a cost-effective and a timely fashion, key to obviously significant amounts of capacity coming online. How can we unlock and support government with challenges in things like the planning process? How can we make sure rooftops remain an important part of how we continue to deploy as well? So how do we incentivize domestic and commercial rooftop solar installations and battery installations alongside as well? And how can we then row a whole bunch of policy and also industry asks into an action plan that the industry, with the support of SE UK, can then carry forward into the future, and that we can also look back on as well and hold ourselves accountable for the progress that we have or haven't made, and hold government accountable as well. I think the key industry ask has always been, from a political environment, be confident, be consistent, and believe in the goal you're trying to get to. So over recent years, we've obviously had not only a net zero focus, but an energy security focus, and that has driven a lot more focus on continuing to drive forward towards additional renewables locally generating power for local consumers. We want to maintain that momentum to ensure that we're able to drive forward that revolution.
Definitely, and obviously there's a bit which kind of Chris Hewitt said to me, and we spoke about a little bit about this off cameras. Chris Hewitt specifically said to me, this is a genuinely joint government and industry initiative, right? And you mentioned to me just before we jumped in, you kind of what your experience have been with the Solar Task Force, because I imagine once something like Chris having to explain that this is a genuinely joint industry government initiative, obviously I imagine there was some skepticism maybe going into it when it was first conceived as well. But what has your experience been with the Solar Task Force so far?
I was very skeptical on the way in, concerned that it would be a talking shop and would avoid difficult issues and not really kind of deliver a sensible or meaningful output. And I've been really impressed by the engagement of the civil service, ministers, and also the industry, and various different stakeholders from around the industry as well. In having those real deep, rich conversations, and in driving towards a set of actions that we believe we need to achieve, and thinking around how we can make the very best use of this document that's coming together. So yeah, I'm very pleasantly surprised by the journey that we've been on as a task force. I do think it's going to generate an important, useful document for the industry. It's another stage of maturity, right? We've not had this joined up thinking with government as an industry before. So it's a real milestone for us, a real kind of springboard, as I said earlier in the chat, for us to then think about that incremental growth for the future.
Definitely, kind of this does lead on to my next question. Obviously, you mentioned this is kind of the first government industry kind of collective, but kind of how important is that collaboration when driving for change? Obviously, you just touched on it there.
Yeah, it's really important. Without a doubt, there are challenges, as we've said, in realising the capacity that we all want to achieve. We need to ensure that it maintains a core focus of government to get to 70 and beyond. We know as an industry we can achieve it, but we do need the support of the policy. We do need the strategic investment of in the grid to make sure we're able to realise the capacity in a timely fashion. We do need support to unlock, restrictions in planning processes, which are mainly kind of resource led. So, projects are islanded in that decision-making process. We need to make sure that we continue to work in partnership with government to do the right thing for the communities in which we operate in. So there's a whole host of kind of joined up thinking that really needs to be done. And what's nice is the political will, is there from existing government. We're in an election year. We're hopeful that the same is replicated by whoever continues to govern the UK. So I think it's a very important milestone for the industry to reach that level of maturity where a whole bunch of competitors and competitors not only in terms of different utility scale asset owners being sat around the same table with government, but also rooftop and ground mount being in the same room, which doesn't happen that often, having real conversations about collectively how we can drive the industry forward as well. So I think it's a very important milestone for us to have achieved this, and it's super important that we maintain that joined up relationship with government for the foreseeable future.
Definitely, and make sure to get down to Solar and Storage Live London to kind of see all these people in the same room together. I mean, speaking for myself, is a great sight to see. But yeah, that was one of my final questions, Ross. Thank you again for giving me your time today. But my final one, where can people find you at Solar and Storage Live London in April?
So, as you said, we have a panel which I'll be on, which is I think 9:45 on the second day. So obviously I'll be there and very happy to meet people. Also, the Next Energy team will be around for the entirety of the event as well. So do reach out to us if you're keen to have a meeting.
Definitely, you heard the man. Get down to NextEnergyCapital stand at Solar and Storage Live London. But Ross, thank you very much for your time today, and yeah, looking forward to see you at Solar and Storage Live London.
Likewise, thanks for today.